So I thought I'd do a video to help explain wheel, tyre size mainly, and suspension choices. So you'll see us comment lots or talk about the fact that a 275/40 profile is the wrong size tyre. What? I cannot stress that it's so importantly. 275/40 is wrong. What? And lots of people have that on their van for several reasons. Firstly, because years ago, there wasn't really the tyre choice that there was now. So a 275/40 will show you in more detail in a minute, but a 275/40 is a 106 rated tyre. Now, 106 rated tyre, to get that rating, you've got big, thick, heavy sidewalls full of rubber and metal, and that just makes the ride really firm. But it's also too big a tyre, which causes rubbing issues. And on top of that, the rolling radius, the circumference of it is so much bigger than OEM, it throws your Speedo out. So disclaimer here, anybody that saw the video we did, possibly the last video, the one before that, on Rusty Lee's van would have noticed that in that we were fitting a 275/40 profile tyre on the rear. So that van had a staggered setup, 9-inch front, 10-inch rear. There isn't necessarily a problem. Certainly if you've got a 10-inch wheel, it adds a bit of stretch to it, so it works when you put a smaller tyre on the front. But for the sake of this video, we're talking more than anything about your standard setup, front width tyre, front wheel, where generally a transporter wheel is an 8.5 or 9-inch wide wheel. So let's take you in and show you an original wheel. So this is a standard 16-inch wheel that comes on a Volkswagen Transporter. Obviously, some of them come with steels, some of them come with alloys. Now, this wheel has a 205/65 16-inch tyre on it. Now, you can see how that sits inside the arch. But what do we do when we want to modify vehicles? We want to put 20-inch wheels on it. So this 16 now becomes a 20, and we also want to make that wheel wider. So whereas this is probably 6 inches wide, most transporter wheels for the front in this case are 8.5 or ideally 9. So looking at Navis wheels for argument's sake, they are the perfect wheel size and fitment for a transporter. So when they were designed dedicated for transporter. So they are 20/9 ET, so the offset is ET42, the 5x120, which is the whole pattern, and the centre bore is 65.1, which is exactly the right centre bore, so you don't need a spigot ring. Same with a bunch of other wheels. So I'm just using these as an example because they're exactly right for a transporter. So now this is a 275/40 profile tyre on the perfect size wheel for a transporter. Now what you've got here is a wheel and tyre package that's too big. So the few things you'll experience. Firstly, the amount of times that somebody will contact one of the solo installers and say, I've got a 275/40 profile tyre, I want to lower it, and they'll have to say, you can't do it, because as soon as you lower it, you're going to get rubbing issues.
It's just, for me, I can't do it.
You can! You can do it, you can! You can!
In fact, with some offsets of wheels, from big manufacturers out there, you get rubbing instantly with this tyre size without even lowering it. Now, the 2 points that they tend to rub on a transporter are on, if we show you on this van here, which is Wheel Pro's Van on Air, there's a panel clip just here. There's a screw that screws the liner into the arch. Now this screw here is where your tyre rubs on it. So you'll find if you're driving along and you go down bumps and dips and undulations in the road, you'll hear like a woof sound. And that's what it is, it's the tyre rubbing on that screw. So if you've got that rubbing noise now, actually a really easy thing to do is remove that screw, pop the arch liner the other side of the metal tab and bend it up out the way. We'll do it on any van on air. This van will be done. I can feel now that it's pushed up there. And it doesn't hurt to do it on your van. It's not going to cause any issues. That arch liner's fixed it in plenty of other places. But one way to help you if you've got a rubbing issue is that. The second area you're going to have any issues is your arch liner. So what you tend to find is as you steer, when you go into full lock, you hear that rubbing on the arch liner, which could be deemed an MOT failure. Again, the guys on air will quite often cut a chunk of the arch liner away, or they'll heat the arch liner and push it out the way. So it's not the end of the world, but it's not ideal. So going back to this tyre, the 275/40 is so much bigger in profile than that 16. So it's wider, the tyre's more upright, and it's larger. The rolling radius is so much bigger. And that's your problem when it comes to rubbing when you lower a van. But even on stock, this is the wrong size tyre. So as I said before, it's a 106 rated tyre, which makes it overload rated. It's super heavy, super hard. The tyres have really big upright sidewalls, just makes it really firm and it makes the ride really uncomfortable. And if you ever decide to lower it in the future, you've got this rubbing issue. The other issue with this tyre is it's so much bigger than your stock tyre. So a really good tool, and a tool that we'll use daily here, is a website called willtheyfit.com by a company called Driftworks, who are friends of ours. You can go in there and you can put in your tyre information. We'll show you some of the prints outs or some of the details of these wheels. You can put in your wheel and tyre information. You can compare that to the wheel that you're thinking of buying, and it will show you how much bigger it is. It will show you how much your rolling radius is bigger, how much your height your vehicle lifts, how much it reduces your arch gap by having a bigger tyre. So I'm just going to take you through some stats for this wheel, for the 275/40 20-inch wheel. So if you bring up willtheyfit.com, you're going to be comparing this wheel, which is your standard wheel that comes on a Volkswagen Transporter. So diameter 16, wheel width is 6.5, the offset is 51, your tyre size is a 205/65 16. Now you're going to compare that to this, or any wheel, whether it's a 20-inch wheel, 20x9 ET42 275/40 profile tyre. So the difference here will show you, first of all, that your circumference, so your length of your tyre when rolling, is 167 millimeters longer. Now, if you're like me and you deal in old money, 167 millimeters, well, that's 6.5 inches. Lots of guys will know how big 6.5 inches is, but that's how much longer your wheel has to roll with the 275/40. So the consequence of there, if we go back to the wheeltheyfit.com, is it throws your speedo out. So it throws your speedo out, in this case, by 7.4%. So to put that into perspective, if your clock is reading 60, you're actually doing 55.6 miles an hour, which sounds great, but then when you're doing 60, you're over the speed limit by 5 miles an hour. So you could risk, or there's an element of getting done for speeding for that. You'll hear people say that the vehicles can be calibrated to compensate for the extra tyre. That is the case on some vehicles. I think you can do it on a 5. You can definitely do it on a 5.1 and 6. This is a T6.1. To my knowledge, there's no way of doing that. But I think somewhere in the ECU, you tell the vehicle Polo or something like that, and that gives it the correct or closer rolling radius to make it more accurate. So 275/40, we will say time and time again, it's too big for rubbing reasons, for rolling radius reasons, for speedo calibration being wrong, and just it being a really uncomfortable tyre. So what we will suggest most of the time here is just dropping down one tyre size. So if you went from that 275/40, if we just compare that again, if you just look how square that is, how upright it is, and how straight that sidewall is, the fact that it bulges out of the tyre, so your alloy is here, and then you see it bulges up and out, is where you cause the rubbing issue. So rubbing here on that arch screw that I told you about, then rubbing here on full lock. If you then compare that by dropping down ever so slightly to a 265/40, you'll see here that the sidewall is slightly shallower and you don't have that extra bulbous height here. So this tyre here is a 104 rated tyre. So it isn't quite as load rated as that tyre, but you don't need that. So Volkswagen Transporters, if you have a T32, it's a class 7 MOT. So they check your tyre rating, and your tyre needs to be a 103 rated or above for a T32. If you've got a T28, T26, T30, 101 rating tyre is fine. It doesn't actually form part of your MOT, so you don't get checked. But obviously, from a safety point of view, you want the most load rated tyre, or you want the correct load rating for your tyre, your vehicle. Bear in mind though, these vehicles can take, a T30 can take 3 ton fully laden weight, and your vehicle is never at that weight. I guarantee you, a really, really heavy camper with a rib bed in the back, popped up on the roof, may weigh somewhere underneath 3 ton. So you don't necessarily need to worry about the load rating from that point of view, but from a safety point of view and your insurance point of view, if you had a blowout for whatever reason, then yeah, you want a 103 rated or above. But you tend to find that most 265/40s are a 104 rated tyre. So personally, I think it looks better. You've not got so much of a bulbous tyre, you've not got a big balloon looking tyre. The tyre is that little bit narrower, so you don't get that rubbing issue. With this tyre, you can lower a van 80 mil before you start to have any issues. It can vary a little bit, you know, a 1.9 5-speed manual will weigh different to a 204 bi-turbo DSG, so it can vary in how much you adjust them. Yeah, 265/40 is normally our most recommended tyre for the maximum comfort, and if people want that extra sidewall for comfort, without doubt the most popular tyre we sell, which is the 265/40. So the thing that confuses people about tyres is what the numbers are, what they relate to. A lot of people think that it's a millimetre measurement. Well, that's not true. So to explain this tyre, the width of this tyre is a 265 and then a 40. Now the 40 is a percentage of the width. So the height of this tyre is 40% of 265. So when you're comparing that to a 275/40, yes, that tyre is wider because it's 275, but the height of it is 40% of 275, whereas this is 40% of 265. So that little tweak just means that you don't get any rubbing issues here. You've got a more comfortable tyre. It's still load rated enough without being overload rated like that is. It doesn't look as big and as bulbous, but it's still going to fill that arch gap quite well, and there's going to be no worries with even the T32 rated because you don't struggle to get that in. So like I said, most common tyre size we sell by far. If you're going for standard suspension, lowering springs, B14s, NXT Plus, NXT, anything like that, maybe even solo NSLs, if you're going to set them really high, that tyre will work. So moving on to the 275/35. So this is what you would class as your European standard tyre. You'll tend to find that any wheel manufacturer has a wheel TUV approved, they will have it TUV approved with this size tyre on. So there's no problems getting a load rated tyre for this. So this is a 103 rated, so fine for T32. Going back a few years, that actually wasn't the option. What you tend to find in Europe is you get very few T32s, most of them are T28s, T30s, so they didn't have this problem. But more recently, more and more tyre manufacturers have realised there's a market for the Transporter, so they've made this size tyre in a 103. So your 103 is going to be absolutely fine for your T32s right the way down. Particularly like this size tyre, I think I like the way it looks without too much sidewall. Still has the comfort. It's closer again to the original rolling radius of the standard 16-inch tyre. And you don't have any of these rubbing issues. Yes, you've got a 275 width on the tyre, but you've got 35% of that for the height of the tyre, so it allows you to go that little bit lower again. So this would be my choice of tyre if I was going to go for a regular drop coilover wound particularly low, like the NXT Plus or NXTs or B14 Comfort Lows or Twin Adjust Project Lows, any of those. Solo NSL certainly. This would be the tyre I would go just so I've got no issues of rubbing if I go really low end on that adjustment. So yeah, 275/35, another really good choice. It just means that it's not going to limit you in the future if you ever do decide to lower your van at all. So moving on from there, 255/35. So again, going back when we first started doing this, there was no such thing as a load rated tyre for guys that went really low. We'd all run like a 97 rating tyre. Yes, people had run them on campers. I never heard of them having any issues, but we all knew that the tyres weren't load rated enough for our vehicles. It didn't bother me necessarily in my vehicle because I never had a particularly heavy camper van, but when the option came out to work with a tyre manufacturer, so we started working with one and explaining how big the demand was for a smaller tyre that was low rated enough for a Transporter, we jumped at the chance. So we started working with this company, so Royal Black, to make a 255/35/20. That's 103 rated as well. So this tyre, again, absolutely fine for a T32. If you're going solo lows or solo air or any air suspension, this tyre will work. It's not going to get you that really low look that a lot of the air guys do, but it means you can run a fully load rated, fully legal tyre without any issues with regards to MOT on a class 7 for a T32 or insurance because your tyre's underrated. There's a couple of manufacturers now that have realised this. There are a few options for this. We work with this one, Royal Black, because we helped them with the initial launch of it, and it's been a really popular tyre. Seems to wear really well. Noise level on it is really low. Seems to be good in wet grip. It seems to be a good value budget tyre, and the wheel and tyre package just makes it really affordable. So with this one, 255 again. So this is the same width wheel, so 9-inch wheel. That 255 is just meant that the top is narrow again, which allows you to get lower again, and then your sidewall is 35% of that 255, so it brings it down again. Again, it's all just about allowing you to get that little bit lower. And again, we're getting closer and closer here actually to the rolling radius of that 16-inch wheel back there. Now, I have next to me here the Wheel Pros van. So this is Wheel Pros van that we've done lots of work on in the past. This vehicle, we developed headlights on it for the T6.1. This vehicle was sent off to SEMA, to the SEMA show in Las Vegas, and just went down a storm. They loved it. It's back here now in the UK doing the rounds, and it's come back to us to have some work done. Those guys wanted a fully road legal tyre to go on this vehicle because they tow with it as well. And obviously it's their marketing vehicle for Rotorform wheels, amongst other things in the Wheel Pros brand. So this vehicle here has a 255/35 profile tyre on it, and you can see it sits well front and rear. Doesn't quite tuck like some of the low vans do, but it's legal and it's load rated and it's still comfortable. So moving down from there, the 235/35. So this is what your air guys are going to run. Moving down from there, the 235/35, which is what you guys that are running air, this is what I would run on a vehicle with air. I mean, some people go smaller than this, some people go 225/35. Your low down guys that wants crazy stretching and want it to sit and tuck really well will go 235/35. Now, as crazy as it sounds, these guys are the ones that are actually as close to the original rolling radius on that 16. So the guys that are on solo air or air suspension or solo low coilovers run really low, that are running these 235/35s that like that really low look, they're actually the ones that Speedos are the closest to match the original Speedo calibration to anybody's, because this smaller tyre means that it's closer to that rolling radius. I think it's something like 0.4 difference between the original tyre and this tyre size to its rolling radius, so your Speedos are closest to how it would be. Downside of this tyre, well, you've obviously got a really big exposed edge to the alloy here, you'll see, so very easy to curb the vehicle. You'll see this one's been curbed just here, whoever's wheel this is. Easy enough to do, unfortunately, but what do I say to that? Well, learn to drive a bit better and stay away from the curbs. I curb the occasional wheel myself, but it's just part and parcel of it. Whereas the bigger tyres are going to allow you to be a little bit more forgiving if you're rubbing against or catching on the curb. 235/35s, you won't get this in a load rated tyre, unfortunately. So this is a 97, I believe. That's as big as you're going to get on 235/35. But like I said before, yes, from an insurance point of view, you're not covered. I've never known, I'm not saying it's never happened, but I've never known anybody have an insurance claim declined on a low van because they've had a tyre issue. But generally, these guys' vans are nowhere near what their maximum laden capacity is. So they're like, this van probably weighs like 2.5 ton with the setup that's in it. There's no roof, if even that. So it wouldn't really have a problem running this tyre from a safety point of view, other than it's not strictly at the load rating it needs to be, because it should really be a 101 rating on this tyre. So we get asked lots really here about tyre size and options and different wheels. Now, we're very good here at knowing exactly what size tyres go on the Navis 20-inch wheel range and the Navis 17-inch wheel range, because we help develop them and we know they're the perfect offset. Lots of other manufacturers use very similar sizing, so it helps us guide you in your tyre size. We're giving out advice all the time. People ring us just for tyre advice on a wheel that they're not buying from us, so we're more than happy to do that. But hopefully we wanted to produce some content to try and help you understand that before you make that decision on what wheel, tyre and suspension package you're going for. This willtheyfit.com website is great. We're not affiliated with them at all, but it's a really good site to help you understand that. So I can tell you what, with regards to suspension, what size 17-inch tyre you would put on your 17-inch wheel if you go for various different suspensions. When it comes to 18s and 19s, I've not revised and learnt them all off the top of my head. So it's a really good way to use willtheyfit.com to go in, put in your original wheel and tyre size, or the 20-inch version that we've said will fit, and then start playing around with tyre sizes and widths to help you calculate how it's going to sit. You'll be able to see from there. You'll see from this diagram here, if you use it as an example, the original wheel size to the new wheel size, and then your differences between your rolling radiuses, your percentage differences on your Speedo, how much higher or lower the van sits, or how it fills your arch gap. So when it comes to wheels, tyres and suspension, we do this all day, every day. So we're giving out advice all the time, and we help people as much as we possibly can. A lot of people think that we drive around in vans like this all day. So yes, like lots of the pictures on our social media you will see are really low on air suspension. But this is partly because when we're developing suspension, you start low, it's easier to back the engineer into it being high. If you can make a van this low and comfortable, when you want to make different levels of suspension back from there, if you start at this base point, you know every point in between is where you can be to get the ultimate in comfort. The reality is we will always have vans knocking around on air, but like this van here, yeah, I know it's a Transit, but this is the van that Mikey's driving around in currently. This has got coilovers on it, development coilovers, which will then fit the T7 platform. Yes, lots of the pictures on our social media you see of low vans, but actually the reality is we're driving around in vans like this. My own van, until very recently, was a black T6.1 that had our Solo NXT coilovers on it. That was the development vehicle, best suspension I think we've ever put on a vehicle, and to this day it's never been improved. That van's currently for sale at Simply Surf Bus, because we've got a T7 similar spec vehicle on the way that will do 4Motion, that will be developing coilovers and lowering springs and lift springs on that as well. So yes, you might see us in these vans, but it doesn't mean that's what we're actually driving. Air suspension is actually a tiny part of our market. Suspension as a whole, whether it's lowering springs, coilovers or lift suspension, really takes up so much more than these vans on air. It's just the vans on air are used because they look cool and because it helps us start low and develop back up from there. Well, I'm not saying if you've got 275 40 profile tyres on your van now, go and get them off straight away. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that maybe when you come to replace those tyres, or when you get a set that's worn out, consider putting your rears in the garage and changing down the front profile slightly. You could always use those on the rear at a later date. If you've experienced this rubbing that you're getting now, you can help yourself keep your tyres, but remove that screw I spoke about. There's no issues. It's not going to be any safety concerns, but just consider or think again when you come to changing your tyres. You'll see lots of companies that say this is the perfect transporter tyre. They are wrong. Trust me, we do this all day, every day. I know why they do it. They are wrong. No, it's not going to make your van blow up. It's not going to cause you any issues, but there are much better tyre choices out there for your vehicle. 265/40, 275/35. If you go in low, 255/35, and anything in between these. So willtheyfit.com again is a really good website that you can use to put in wheel and tyre options to try and find what's the sweet spot. There are tyre choices which I've not gone through that are in between these that work just as well. Just that one's too big and that one's too small if you're going on coilovers. What you have to be very careful of is we want the van to look good as well as ride good. Now if you go putting this small tyre, this 255/35 on a van that's on Solo NXT Plus for argument's sake, you're going to have a massive arch gap. So it's about finding the compromise. Yeah, down this end of the scale where the tyre's smaller, your rolling radius is going to be closer to your original 16, but it's going to look awful, and you're going to be sacrificing comfort if you've got this tiny tyre on a van that's only lowered 50 mil. It's going to look odd, tiny tyre, not fill the arch very much. So finding the right size tyre to suit your suspension is key. If you've not lowered it massively, you don't want a tiny tyre. If you have lowered it massively, you can't get away with these big tyres. So hopefully this video gives you a guide depending on what look you're trying to go for your vehicle. Hope you've enjoyed this video. We're just trying to help give you some more information to help you in your quest to build the perfect transporter or tweak the transporter you've got. Or if you're looking at changing your wheel, tyre, suspension package, hopefully this video is useful to help you decide the direction you go with your setup. If you've enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button, it means a lot. Please do share this video with anybody that's got a transporter that's considering changing wheels or tyres, or you've heard them say that they've got a rubbing issue or they don't like the way they look. Maybe this video will help them. Please do subscribe to the channel. Lots of people watch our videos that don't actually subscribe. It doesn't take a lot. If you can, please just hit that subscribe button, ring the little bell to get notifications when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for watching.